Shalom, my dear brethren in Yahshua Messiah. In the book of Acts, chapter 10, starting from verse 1, we learn of somebody called Cornelius who received a vision where he was instructed to send for Apostle Peter so that he could come and give them the gospel. On the other side, Apostle Peter was also given a vision starting from verses 11. And then our interest here is, what did this vision mean? Did it mean that unclean animals were now being cleansed, as being claimed by Christian theologians, like one Professor R.L. Solbach, whom I am becoming very interested in his teachings? Now let's listen to what Professor is saying.
Talking with a Torah-observant Christian about the subject of Acts 10 and Peter's vision, they will invariably claim that the vision was only about Gentiles and had nothing to do with food. There are three problems with that.
So Professor is saying that vision where Peter saw unclean animals, as we are going to see, was not about Gentiles receiving the gospel, but it was also a way where unclean animals were now being declared as food.
First, the vision was literally about food. God told Peter to eat the animals. Second, on what basis are we willing to allow for a change on the issue of people but not food? That's completely arbitrary. Third, if the vision of the food was solely intended as a metaphor for the Gentiles, well then Jesus was using a false metaphor. He was essentially saying, look, I know in this vision I'm telling you that all food is now clean, but it's not really true. It's just an example I'm using to show you that you can hang out with Gentiles now. No, that is not how God works. And actually, the problem is far deeper than that.
Now that is our professor viewed that vision. Now, let's look at the context of that Acts chapter 10, and then we can infer whether that vision meant Gentiles or it also meant that unclean animals were also being cleansed. Because I think as a believer who is looking for truth, we should allow the scriptures to talk. We don't implant our own arguments. When you read a verse, you should be able to get the context, and the Holy Spirit should be able to guide you that this is about this. Now, so we have Acts chapter 10, verse 11. It is saying, and behold, the heaven opened, and sudden vessel descending, as it were a great seed, laid down by four corners upon the earth, wherein were whole manner of four-footed beasts and creeping things of the earth and birds of heaven. That is, these are the unclean animals. Now, and there came a voice to him, rise, Peter, kill and eat. Verse 14, but Peter said, no, not so, Lord, for I have never eaten anything that is common and unclean. In another teaching, the same Professor R.L. Solbach teach that Peter instructed Mark to write in Mark chapter 7, verses 19, those words in parentheses, that unclean animals were now cleansed. Now, the book of Acts came later, but you can see still Peter knew that some animals were common and unclean. So this means it is not true that Peter instructed Mark to indicate that unclean animals were cleansed when Yahshua was actually still on earth. Acts was when he had already ascended. Verse 14 here, Peter is being shown unclean animals, and then Peter is saying, I have never eaten anything that is common and unclean. Verse 15 it says, and a voice came unto him again the second time, and then said, what God had cleansed, make not thou common. So up there, it is about food, as Professor is insisting. Now, continue to say, and this was done thrice, and straightway the vessel was received up in heaven. So if this writing remained there, we will actually say yes. unclean animals were cleansed. But let's continue. Now, while Peter was much perplexed in himself what the vision which he had seen meant, so you can see here, Peter, with the direction of the Holy Spirit that we will see later, was perplexed. He knew in his mind, in his spirit, that it is not about food, that it is not about animals being cleansed now as food. What happened? Behold, the man that was sent by Cornelius, having made inquiry for Simeon's house, stood before the gate. Verse 18 says, and called and asked whether Simeon, who was surnamed Peter, was lodging there. And while Peter thought on the vision, up to here, Peter is still questioning himself about his vision. The Spirit said unto him, behold, the man sick thee. So could you realize what happened here? Peter knew in his spirit that it isn't about food. Then what happened? The Spirit said unto him, the man sick thee. Now, when you read, if you go to verse, the same Mark chapter 11, verse 12, this is what the Holy Spirit is also talking about. And the Spirit bade me go with them, making no distinction. Making no distinction. No distinction of what? Unclean animals, unclean animals? No. No distinction here. No distinction of people. Gentiles and Jews were now the same. And these six brethren also accompanied me, and we end up under the man's house. In Acts 10, if you go to verses 28, this is what it says. So when Peter arrived in Cornelius' house, this is what he said. And he said unto them, ye yourselves know how it is unlawful for a man that is a Jew to join himself or come unto one of another nation. And yet unto me God showed that I shall not call any man common or unclean. You see that? Peter now, with the direction of the Holy Spirit, now knew that Gentiles and Jews were the same. Peter did not even mention of animals because he knew that the vision was about people. Now in verses 34, it says, and Peter opened his mouth and said, oh, a truth, I perceive that God is not respecter of person, but in every nation he that feared him and walked righteous is accepted, is acceptable to him. The word which he sent, the children of Israel preaching the good tidings of peace by Yeshua Messiah, who is the master of all. So Peter never mentioned of now I have learned that unclean animals are now food, as Professor would want to insist. I would want to urge Bible teachers like Professor R.L. Solberg is, it is in order you read the Bible, get the context. Don't interject your own interpretation. Because who do we now follow? Do we follow Peter? Or do we start following Christian theologians like you who are twisting scriptures? Thank you.